Hello everyone, this is OB aka 3X and welcome to another CAW University tutorial. We're in the ring right now with John Payne and Riot because we're going to talk today about movesets and moveset philosophies, what it is that you should be doing and what it is that you should not be doing as far as crafting the arsenal of your characters in game. Now this is going to be kind of a long video, so I'm going to be putting timestamps down in the description box so you can jump straight to certain sections, but I would highly recommend that you watch the entire video all the way through just for the sake of seeing how it is that I work out my movesets and the best possible way basically to categorize the styles of fighting that your own characters do in context to their own individual personas, and most importantly how to execute those moves in the ring when you're running matches, specifically if you plan on doing your own CAW show or CAW league at any point in time within the course of WWE games, whether they be 2K17, 17, 18, whatever the case may be. So we're actually going to get into these guys in the last portion of this video. The first portion, however, is going to focus on the moveset menu and customizing your movesets themselves. So let's jump into that. If you don't think that a moveset is important to a created character in these games, then you are sorely mistaken, because it is a vital element in conveying the story of your character and what it is that he or she is capable of in the ring, their background as far as training and so on, things of that nature. One thing that has remained constant over the course of WWE games is that you can always create a style of wrestling for a character that is specific to that character. Because just like in real professional wrestling, their moveset, their arsenal of tactics that they use in matches, tells a lot about who they are just as much as their appearance or their attire or even their theme song or their persona or everything. And even if a character like, say, Shawn Michaels or The Rock were either a face or a heel, that being a good guy or a bad guy for those of you who are not into wrestling jargon, there are still parts of their movesets that remain constant and specific to them, that defines who it is that they are. Whether you liked Shawn Michaels or not, he would always finish a match off with sweet chin music. Whether you liked The Rock or you hated him, he always used the people's elbow, the rock bottom, things like that. And it goes even deeper than just finishing maneuvers, but actually how it is that they set up these maneuvers and their overall wrestling styles altogether. So sit back and I'm going to share with you some philosophies and a couple of tips and tricks for you in terms of making movesets and how you can actually use these movesets properly to make matches look more compelling and realistic. So let's start with styles. Not Photoshop styles this time, but fighting styles. The game itself in the quick edit menu actually lists some pretty basic categories for fighting styles. And these are pretty much universally known fighting styles throughout wrestling. In some way, shape, or form, every wrestler in real wrestling can be broken down into any of these 7 different styles, either specifically or maybe even a combination of multiple of them. You have your aerialists, which are basically high flyers. So luchadors, cruiserweights, basically lighter, faster wrestlers usually are going to fall under this category. Guys who are usually going to be doing springboard moves, flying moves off of the top rope, moves that don't involve actually lifting up your opponents. So drops like DDTs, drop toe holds, things of that nature. Then you have your brawlers, which is pretty self-explanatory. These are going to be the rough and tumble street fighter, barroom type guys who are more akin to use punches, kicks, really dirty tactics, and unpolished kind of fundamental moves like your typical slams, like a body slam or some kind of throw that doesn't involve a lot of technique. Just basically attack and try to do as much harm and inflict as much punishment as possible. Brawlers are also the ones who are going to be more likely to use weapons and inanimate objects to get the job done, like putting people through tables. Giants are also kind of self-explanatory. You got your guys like Andre the Giant, like The Big Show, basically your large athletes, the guys who are going to be 300 plus, who are generally very difficult to pick up or to knock down. And usually giants also fall under the powerhouse style, which is basically really strong, either able to dish out or withstand a lot of punishment and use a lot of power moves like gorilla presses, power bombs, really hard throws, or things of that nature. Showboats are going to be the showman type or showwoman type of wrestlers. High charisma, really into getting at fans' reactions, whether it be getting them to cheer for you or against you. Again, Shawn Michaels and The Rock are 2 perfect examples of this. Guys who basically can entertain necessarily without even wrestling, just by their words or promos or such like that. And it kind of carries over into their wrestling style because their movesets are designed basically to evoke some form of emotion or reaction out of the crowd. Strikers are something that has become new to American style wrestling, but is pretty common in Europe and especially over in Japan, where it originated and is known as either Puro or Strong style, which mixes striking, as in contemporary conventional martial arts like kickboxing, karate, things of that nature, into wrestling. So using strikes like hard punches, open hand strikes, kicks, knees. Shinsuke Nakamura is obviously the poster child for this specific style, but not the only, and most certainly not the first, especially if you follow New Japan Pro Wrestling. And technicians are going to be your fundamental catch as catch can, as it is usually known as back in the day, type of wrestlers that use your basic techniques, very little wasted movement, kind of the antithesis of a showman, where they're not going to try to play to the crowd so much as they're just going to try to wear down their opponent by using holds, submissions, and also throws such as suplexes and so on. Shoot wrestlers use this style. Examples in actual wrestling are Bret the Hitman Hart back in the day, Daniel Bryan, Dean Malenko, Chris Benoit, guys of that nature. So, like I said, any wrestler is going to cover either one or multiple of these 7 categories. The more complete wrestlers are going to have at least 4 or 5 of these categories, and those are a very, very rare breed of performer in real wrestling. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be the case in your game with your characters, because these are your creations and you're free to do with them however it is that you want. But that being said, you don't want to have a bunch of super athletes in your league or show that can do too much, because then that makes things a little less multi-dimensional. You want to have different styles represented to have more compelling matches to convey strengths and weaknesses for the characters and their tactics within the matches against each other. If I were to break down some of my own creations to these 7 styles, just to give you an idea of what it is that I'm talking about here, then it would be like this. For example, John Payne here would be a striker, technician, brawler, and aerialist, which would be conveying the fact that his base is striking because he studied several martial arts. Technique, because he will use a lot of really straightforward fundamental moves rooted in mixed martial arts and Greco-Roman, so he'll use holds, submissions, throws like suplexes, like I explained before. Brawler kind of goes hand in hand with technical, because once again it's straightforward, forward movement, attacking style that he uses. Not so much the hardcore end of it, but just so much the high impact end of it. And aerialist, because even though he's a heavyweight, he will have a tendency sometimes to take to the skies and use springboard moves, top rope moves, that sort of thing. We're going to another high-rated character on my roster, would obviously be Riot, and his breakdown would be brawler, powerhouse, striker. Brawling being his base, because obviously his background is from underground street fighting, which is brawling basically in its purest form of inflicting as much pain and suffering on your opponent as possible. Weapons, whatever the case may be. And powerhouse, because he has a tendency of using big, powerful moves that utilize his obvious upper body strength. So power bombs, body slams, presses, things of that nature that involve a lot of strength to execute. And striking, because that goes hand in hand with the brawling, where he will use a lot of hard punches and really, really mean kicks. Not so much, technical kicks, but stuff designed to hurt people. So knees, stomps, that type of thing. Another high-rated character that I have on my roster, and you will kind of notice a pattern here, is Yoshitogo, who I've explained in Weekly Upload Update is probably the second best overall fighter, so to speak, behind Riot. His breakdown would be striker, technician, and aerialist. So he might not have the same amount of styles mixed in, but it is how it is that he uses these styles very proficiently that conveys his effectiveness in the ring and how tough of an opponent he would be to anybody else on the roster in terms of my shows. And I will go into the context of that in the next section of this video. But basically, striker, because like John Payne, he studied many different martial arts. So punches, kicks, elbows, that type of thing are going to be the base of what it is that he will do as far as wearing down opponents. Technician, same thing as Payne again. And aerialist, basically the same idea, pretty much. So Payne and Togo are kind of cut from the same cloth, except that John Payne will actually brawl a little bit more, whereas Yoshi Togo will utilize more of his technical acumen and basically use techniques and tactics over aggression, unlike his two counterparts above 100 rank. Another example of multiple styles, but not so many, would be Angelus Aurelius, who is also a high-rated character, but his styles only use two, which is Powerhouse and Technique. But again, it's the application of those two styles that he uses that makes him such a dangerously unique individual, because Powerhouse Technique is not usually a style that you see combined in many wrestlers in real life. The only two of note that I can think of is Scott Steiner and Brock Lesnar, who are both very strong guys, but also have roots in amateur style wrestling, so they have the acumen of being technically sound and not using a lot of wasted motion and being straightforward, wearing down opponents. But they also happen to be really freaking strong, so they can mix those together extremely well. And that basic premise is exactly what Angelus Aurelius' style of wrestling is. Let's focus over on the ladies now, and we'll start with the Diamond Champion Haley Jonas, rated 95. Her and Jamie Fury are actually my two highest rated females, for obvious reasons. Haley's styles would be Brawler, Striker, and Powerhouse, which is exactly the same three styles that Riot uses, but if you'll notice, they're flipped, because Riot's second most important element is Powerhouse, but Haley's second most important element is Striking, which would be to imply that Haley will use punches and kicks a little bit more than Riot will. And she also has some very powerful moves because she is deceptively strong despite not being as large as the larger females that I would typically make. So the composition of her moveset is going to be a little bit different than Riot's, but at the same time, they fight kind of similar to each other. Speaking of Jamie Fury over here, she, just like Angelus Aurelius, is also a Powerhouse Technician hybrid. But again, it's the application of which moves that I use in those two styles that make up her moveset, where she actually uses a bit more power than she does technique, whereas Angelus will use an equal amount of power and technical moves in his repertoire. Reason being, obviously, Jamie Fury doesn't have the world-class grappling ability that Angelus Aurelius has, but what she does have is freakishly strong athletic ability, and is one of, if not the strongest female on the XWA roster. So you don't really need to be too technical when you can basically lift anything that you fight against over your head and slam them down real hard onto the mat. Pretty much. Special cases now. There are two of them on my roster that are both based in the same foundation, but have different applications as far as the other styles that they use. That being the showman style. I don't usually make a lot of really flashy, showy characters, so these two are reflective to that, on the fact that they will have the highest charisma ratings of any of my characters on roster, both in terms of males and females. Cyrus the Entertainer will have the showboat style mixed with a Powerhouse and Brawler style, because obviously he's a big strong guy himself. He's done some boxing, so while he's going to be a striker. He's not as much of a refined striker as, say, a John Payne is. He's not going to use a whole lot of kicks and knees and such like that. What he is going to use is his fists. And that goes part and parcel with the powerhouse end of it, where he's using really high impact moves and kind of unpolished high impact moves. Nothing very technical. But the base is always going to be the showboat style, where he's playing to the crowd and trying to get under his opponent's skin by intimidating, by using the mind games and taunting and things of that nature. On the female end of that spectrum, we have Amber Gianni over here, who has the highest charisma rating amongst all of my female competitors. And her basis is also going to be the showboat style, but then she also uses technician and aerialist. So you see right there how you can have a showman or showboaty, flashy, flamboyant type of character, but have completely different elements aside from that. Amber obviously is going to be more of a technically sound wrestler. She uses fundamental moves. She uses a lot of holds and submissions, and then she's also a high flyer. She's pretty acrobatic, though not as acrobatic as some who have the aerialist as their foundation, such as La Reina, who is obviously a luchadora, so it's pretty self-explanatory in that respect. And Marisol Cardinal, who I just recently completed, and you will see in detail in the next weekly upload update, which may or may not have been put out before this. I'm not sure how it is. I'm going to order these videos when I release them. But their styles both are going to be aerialist, technical, striker. But again, it's the application of how it is that I split those styles up that differentiates what it is that they can do and their overall persona and attack styles. So exactly what is it that I mean when I say putting it all together? Well, let's take a look at the two styles that I showed you, the two characters who have the exact identical style traits, and see how the application of them are different from each other. So we're here on Angelus Aurelius's moveset, and we'll take a focus on his grappling moves, and I'm going to compare them to Jamie Fury's. As you can see, Angelus's moveset uses a lot more of a mixture, like I said, of the power with the technique, where you'll have suplexes mixed with big, powerful slams. That was his front face lock, and we'll take a look at his medium grapples. You see the stalling suplex there, which is obviously a power move, as is the military press slam, but then he also happens to have a butterfly suplex, which is a very technically sound maneuver right there, and another variation of a belly-to-belly suplex. And as far as the medium grapples, it's basically suplexes. Take a look at the back suplex there, backbreaker drop, which is a kind of a mix. It can be a technical move or a powerful move, because that is a lift-up move. There's a lot of height going in that one. And then the strong moves, basically, is going to use a lot of technique, which is uncharacteristic for a guy who is as big and strong as he is. You see, he has 3 different variations of suplexes for his strong moves, as opposed to it being something like a power bomb or a big body drop or a hard slam or something. That's reflective of his fighting style, where he is rooted more in grappling and uses his power as a supplement to that, not the base. Now, if we compare that to Jamie Fury's moveset, who again is also a powerhouse technician, her moveset utilizes the power aspect a whole lot more, where she is going to use a lot of big slams and high impact moves that basically predicate the fact that she is a strong individual, and she's going to use her power advantage against her opponents more often than not. Again, you see here, in terms of her medium grapples, she uses a lot of strong moves. Gourd Buster, Fall Away Slam, a Flapjack, and one suplex. Whereas by comparison, in the same category, Angelus has 2 suplexes. And then in terms of the strong grapple, she only has 1 suplex again, whereas Angelus had 3. She also has a military press. She will use a power bomb, and she's got this reverse DDT to kind of, mix things up. And the triple suplex, aka Suplex City. So you can see pretty much that even though they both use the exact same styles, how it is that they mix those styles up, or how it is, I should say, that I mixed those styles up to convey the strengths and abilities of the characters themselves, is completely different. And that's something that you should keep in mind when you're making your own characters, because you never want to use the same movesets, and even if you do, you want to put a little variation in them. That way they seem a little more individual, even though they might have the exact same premise behind them. It's all of the execution. While we're talking about execution here, since we're still in the custom moveset menu, let's mainly focus on grappling again. I'm going to tell you exactly what it is that you probably shouldn't be doing, that a lot of people do, that really kind of waters down movesets and makes them look a lot less effective, even though you probably think to yourself that they would be more effective. And that is using the wrong moves in the wrong slots, because then you're using the wrong moves in the wrong spots in your matches, which really makes them look weak, because you're using a lot of big moves in places like early on in the match, for example, that they really don't belong. I'm here on John Payne's movesets, and if you can take a look, your grappling moves specifically should be leveled to like the different portions of the match. Front face lock moves and medium grapples are going to be your most commonly used moves, so they should be commonly used professional wrestling moves. Stuff like Russian leg sweep, you'll see a belly to belly here, variation of a back suplex from the front, and he's got a brain buster. These are all commonly used moves at the starting portions of the matches. The exception being the brain buster, which has been used on occasion as a finishing move for certain wrestlers in real life, such as Eddie Guerrero, Austin Aries, but for the most part, it's a basic fundamental move. And that's what the composition of at least the front face lock moves should be. Now, if you actually go into the choices that you have, you'll see that there's a lot of really cool looking moves that you can actually use in the front face lock position. Some of them, however, just because they're there doesn't necessarily mean you should actually use them. like the Bankrupt, for example, which is in actuality Sasha Banks' finishing move. There's no reason why a finishing move should be available in the front face lock. Like, that completely waters down the move if you use it, because then you have a finishing move that you're using at any portion of the match, and especially one with a pin combo there. Like, why would you put that in that slot? That should be either a strong move or a finishing move itself. General rule of thumb is that if it's a finishing move in real life that has been used only as a finishing move in real life, then you should only use it as a finishing move. Not a setup move, not a startup move. Another example, belly to belly suplex. This you can actually use as a regular move because it is in fact just a belly to belly suplex. It's just in the context of Bayley's persona as a character in the WWE that she uses it as a finishing move. The only other person who I know who's ever used a belly-to-belly suplex as a finisher was Ken Shamrock back when he was in the WWE himself. So it's one of those things like the Brain Buster where depending on the character, it can be used as a finisher, but it's primarily used as a regular move. Whereas the Bankrupt is specifically a finishing maneuver. Any variation that you've seen it, which would be something like the Regal Cutter that William Regal used back in the day, or back when he was wrestling actively, it was a finisher or a signature. It was not something that was used all the time, is what I'm trying to get at here. So basically, your startup moves should be really, really fundamental, or really, really, you could say, basic. Nothing too fancy, nothing big. It should just be something to start things off. And these would be the moves that you would be using more often at the starting portion or the mid portions of your matches. We take a look at the medium ground moves. Again, these are moves that you would be using at the midpoint of matches after you've kind of put some wear and tear onto your opponent, or it has been put on you. Then you start pulling out some bigger moves to inflict a little bit more damage onto your opponents. And again, in the context of John Payne, he's going to use a lot of really technical moves, or moves that don't involve a whole lot of motion. They're exacting moves designed to inflict damage where it is that they're supposed to inflict. Half Nelson Bulldog there. You know, a little bit of philosophy behind John Payne, kind of going off on a tangent a little bit. I did actually incorporate a little bit of Chris Kanyon into his repertoire. For those of you who don't know, Chris Kanyon obviously passed away. When he first came on in WCW as Mortis and then took his own name, he was known as the innovator of offense. And back in the mid-90s, when he first came along, he was using variations of moves that were not typically seen. Nowadays, it's the norm, but stuff like inverted DDTs and electric chair drops and things of that nature, nobody was doing that stuff but him. And that was kind of his niche. That was what got him over. And I kind of incorporated that a little bit into the technical aspect of John Payne's moveset, where he will use innovative moves and also really, really quick hitting moves. But getting back to the flow of a match, mid-range, mid-grapples are going to be bigger than fundamental, but again, you're not going to be putting finishing maneuvers into these categories, or at least you shouldn't be using finishing maneuvers in these categories. because it makes the finishers themselves look weak. You could easily throw 2 power bombs and 2 choke slams in this category and call it a day, but those are not moves that are going to be taking down or taking out your opponent. You're not going to be winning the match with them. So they're just moves, and that makes the move look weak in terms of the psychology of it. A big move like that is something that should be used for a pinfall or a knockout or whatever the case may be. We go into the menu here, you can see that you don't even have choke slams in this category, which is a good thing because those moves are actually designed to be finishing maneuvers. And one good thing that they actually started to do from the 2K games when they took over from THQ is that they will restrict certain moves in certain categories that shouldn't be actually used in those specific categories. But still, there are the outliers, such as the dark matter here. This is a finisher quality maneuver right here. So to be putting it in a medium grapple category will make the move look weak, just like with the bank statement, or the bankrupt I should say. It was a move that was exclusively used by Cody Rhodes as Stardust to end matches. That's the type of move that this should be used in game. To use it as a regular move makes the move look weaker than it actually should. So as not to be kind of redundant and repeating the same thing, we will take a look at the strong grapples. And again, in Payne's case, it's going to be a case of using more technical and innovative moves. Suplex, side effect, variation on the neck breaker, and the rolling neck breaker. Really innovative, cool looking maneuvers. But then if we go into the menu, you'll see a much larger availability of moves that you will have to be able to choose from, which will include all of your choke slams. In this category is where it would be okay to start using the big moves, because a strong grapple is kind of self-explanatory. It should be a strong move. It should be your biggest, baddest arsenal of attacks aside from your signature and finishing maneuvers. So here is where you would give your character, if he's a if he's a powerhouse, something like a choke slam or a power bomb or a big time gorilla press or something like that. You can actually also do it in the other categories, but it depends on the context of the character itself as well. Because military presses are not necessarily finishing moves. The only person who actually used it as a finisher, of course, is the Ultimate Warrior. So it just depends on your character and how you want that move to be conveyed. Do you just want it to be a regular part of their repertoire, or do you want it to be something that they use to set up even bigger moves than that? It all depends on the character and how it is that you want that character's moveset to be set up. But once again, certain moves should not be used in certain situations. Strong moves should be relegated to strong grapples. And anything that has been used as a finisher exclusively, like never used by anybody else for anything else aside from finisher, those should be relegated to either big moves or signatures and finishing moves themselves. Because otherwise, you throw a bunch of big finishing maneuvers onto the same moveset, it makes all those moves look weak. Like if I'm going to put a power bomb onto somebody's front grapple, then that means I'm not going to have a power bomb as their finisher, because what's the point of having two power bombs in the same moveset? Power bomb is supposed to be that person's finisher, then that should be the only variation that they have. unless they're using something aside from Powerbomb, then that's going to be one of their big moves, but it's not going to be one of their basic moves, if that makes any sense. Which brings us back here in the ring, and I'm actually going to split this tutorial up. The second part, or I guess we could even call it its own tutorial, will be coming up next, which will be an in-ring demonstration of how the moves that you put together can be conveyed to portray the story of the characters themselves and the match that you're about to put out, and also kind of sort of give you a little bit of pointers as far as simulating your own matches, as in player versus player, specifically when you're the only one who is playing. So this one is definitely going to be aimed towards those of you who maybe want to do your own core shows out there and don't really know how, or don't really know what it is that other people who do this stuff does. So I'm going to show you. And that is going to be the next tutorial, which will be uploaded not too soon after this one. I really hope you guys enjoyed it and found it informative, and hopefully you can use some of the philosophies and the pointers that I gave you back there in your own creations to make better movesets for your characters and make the whole package as good as it can be, because having good looking CAWS is only half of the battle. What it is that they're capable of doing in the ring and how much sense what they do in the ring makes to that character is just as important, in my opinion. So just remember that this stuff is, of course, my opinion, and that there is no right or wrong way to do it. But if you want your creations to have a certain level of consistency, realism, and interest to them, then just take this stuff into consideration. So yeah, that'll be the end of that. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next tutorial. And if you enjoyed, hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, then subscribe for more tutorials like this, and of course my XWA show and other gaming goodness. And of course, if you are old to the channel and have not done so, shame on you. Hit the bell button by the subscribe button. That way you'll be notified instantly whenever new content comes up on my channel. So that's that. Thanks again, and until the next time, which will be very, very soon, this is OB aka 3X, and class is dismissed.